Well, welcome everyone. As you know, my name is Grace Simpkins, and I am going to be your moderator today. So welcome to NOAA Live. This series is sponsored by NOAA's Regional Collaboration Network, which is spread across the country and helps connect people to all that NOAA does. It's also sponsored by Woods Hole Sea Grant, where I work, which is located at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. To find out about our future webinars, you can just go to the Woods Hole Sea Grant education page, or you can like us on Facebook. This, believe it or not, is our 17th webinar in a series designed to help you get to know NOAA and some of our incredible experts during these months of school closures. All of our speakers work for some part of NOAA, so you probably already know this. That's NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Today, I am so excited. I'm going to be introducing you to Chris Blight. He's going to tell you all about sharks and his work at Mississippi Alabama Sea Grant and the Dauphin Island Sea Lab. He may be introducing some new vocabulary, and if he does, I will spell those words in your chat box so that you can see them. I'll send them to everybody. We'll be talking today about how NOAA does research and manages resources along the coastline and in the ocean, and we want to recognize that these are the traditional territories of the regional Native Americans who have substantial traditional and local knowledge and so much to share with us. These groups for Chris are the Mobile and Washington County Choctaw Indians, the Cherokee, and the Creeks. We'd also like to acknowledge that we are hosting this webinar from the land of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe and the Wampanoag tribe of Gayhead-Aquina. A few guidelines before I hand it over to Chris. I know you're eager to hear all about sharks from him. You are all muted because we have a lot of people on the line, and we want to make sure that everybody can hear our speaker. However, as you've already discovered, there is that question box. Please write questions as we go along. I'll be keeping track of them for Chris, and he will stop every so often to answer as many of those as he can during the webinar. So I've done enough talking. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Chris.
All right, thank you very much, Grace. Like she said, my name is Chris Blight, and I am part of the Mississippi Alabama Sea Grant education team. Now, I'm based at the Dauphin Island Sea Lab, where I do most of my work. And the Dauphin Island Sea Lab is just one part of the entire Mississippi Alabama Sea Grant education team. And we do a lot of work with students just like yourselves, both through webinars like this, as well as local outreach. Now, a little bit more about me, and I promise I'll make it quick, because I know you're not interested in me, you're interested in the sharks that are behind me. I grew up in Chicago, and I have always loved sharks. In fact, since about second-ish grade. So just real quick, just raise your hand. Anyone super interested in sharks, maybe thinking about being a shark scientist one day? Excellent. So I know you should have awesome questions. Just type them in that chat box, and I will stop throughout my talk to give you time to ask those questions. Now, before I get super into the sharks, you might have noticed the sharks are behind me. I'm not freaking out like they're sneaking up and trying to attack me. They're not moving, they're not in water. So you might be thinking to yourself, he's got a bunch of fake sharks. They're all toys. Well, no, these are real sharks, but they're not real live sharks. They are real dead sharks. Well, let me explain to you why I have them, because we did not go out and kill a bunch of sharks just for this talk today. These sharks have been part of our educational materials collection, or a collection of preserved specimens, some of them for close to 10 years. In science, a lot of times to learn about different animals, it is necessary to sacrifice them, look at the insides, learn more about them. And if you do this with a few animals, you gain knowledge that will help you better protect and understand all of the others out there. So these sharks come to us from various scientific projects where the scientists were trying to learn new things about these animals. They didn't want to have to take them out of the ocean, but to learn more, they did. Well, when they're done, they're not just going to throw them away. That would be a waste. I can use them to teach students just like you. So yes, I have dead sharks. Yes, it kind of makes me sad to see them dead. I'd rather see them alive, but these sharks have taught thousands of students over the years, and you are joining that group of students who has learned from them. Now, I do have a bunch of different sharks. This one is an Atlantic sharp-nosed shark. It's got that pointy nose. It's one of the more common ones around here. I also have a tiger shark, a little young tiger shark. And as I just name a couple species, what I want you to start thinking about and typing in your chat box, let us know what you think makes a shark. What common characteristics do you see? What do sharks have in common that makes them different from other fish or dolphins or whales? I got 2 more species. There are 3 more that I'll show you, and then I'll hear some of your thoughts. I have a bull shark today. Check out that bull shark. Nice little baby bull shark. 2 different kinds of hammerhead sharks. A bonnet head, one of the smaller hammerheads, as well as this one, little scalloped hammerhead. So hopefully you got a good look at some of those sharks. You've had a little bit of time to start typing in that chat box. So Grace, what are they thinking? What makes a shark a shark? What do they have in common?
Well, thanks for asking, Chris. We have a lot of different ideas. So Juliana and James say that it's they all have gills and fins. Lillian thinks that they have big tails. Aurora thinks they have more rows of teeth than other fish. Lori thinks they have pointy teeth and a dorsal fin. And James thinks fins, bold black eyes. They can smell very well, Duncan says, and they have a slender body. Oh, Anya says they have cartilage bones and the ability to detect energy through water. Their 6th sense, she says. So a lot of really great responses, I have to say. And they never stop swimming forward, Jonathan says. I think that sort of captures most of what people are saying.
Awesome. Well, awesome job. A lot of those things are absolutely correct. The one that I want to highlight, just because that's where I was going next. They were all really good answers. But really quick, I do want to talk about their skeleton. Inside, their bones are made of cartilage, which is very flexible kind of connective tissue. It's not solid and rigid like the bones that we have. It's more like their skeleton is made of the stuff that holds our bones together. If you've never felt cartilage, just take one finger and don't stick it up your nose, but just touch the tip of your nose or pinch your earlobe. And that is what their skeleton is made out of. In fact, all of the elasmobranchs, which is a fun vocab word for you, that is a fancy way of saying sharks, skates, and stingrays. All of these fish have cartilaginous skeletons. Now, today, I want to talk a little bit more about common body characteristics, things that these sharks have in common, and then we're going to move into how they find their food. And I was so excited to hear some of you already talking about sharks' different senses, and we'll get into that. One of the things I want you to notice really quick, if you look at this shark, someone said long, slender, pointed nose, kind of big tails. A lot of sharks have this body shape. This is called fusiform. It means they kind of look like torpedoes, pointed at this end, it kind of gets skinny at this end, thick body in the middle. Now, do any of you, it's a good thing to type in the chat box, do you have any idea why a lot of sharks are this shape? Like why would this shape, this torpedo-like shape, why would this help you swim through the water? I mean, I think that's why sharks would want it, but why? Why is this an advantage for them? Any thoughts?
So Anya is saying that it helps them to glide through the water easier, and Isabella thinks it helps them swim fast, and Roger thinks it makes them slipstreamed or maybe streamlined. So a lot of Eric thinks maybe it reduces friction. A lot of them think it just helps them to move faster and make them streamlined.
Mm-hmm. You are absolutely correct. It's going to help streamline their body, make that water pass over them easier, and help them move a lot quicker. Sharks that don't look like this, that don't have that fusiform body, they're usually the ones that aren't swimming very fast. Think like an angel shark or something like that. Looks more like a pancake on the bottom of the ocean than a torpedo. The other thing I want you to notice about this shark, this side, its back side, that is the dorsal side. And check out what color it is. We look at the ventral side or the belly side. Look at that color. Does anyone know what we call this color pattern, where they have a dark back and a light belly? Anyone know what that's called?
Okay, think back to our marine mammal webinar if you were part of that, because I talked about that dark and light. And Shannon and Steven say that it's camouflage. Porter and Joe say it's counter shading. Kyle says counter shading.
That is exactly right. Counter shading or counter coloration. Why would this help? Why is this camouflage? Because, I mean, I can see it. It's not turning invisible. Why is a light belly and a dark back going to help me if I'm a shark in the ocean?
Does anyone remember why their top part? Oh, so Bridget says the dark side faces up and looks like water. And what about the white belly? Why is the belly white? Eric thinks it confuses the prey. And Bridget then says the light side looks like the light because, and Isabel says because the sky is light. So Sloan adds the prey can't see them from below. And Jennifer said the bottom looks like the sky, top looks like the water.
All right, that sounds like you've got a really good idea of what this camouflage is doing for them. If you're a little bit confused, just close your eyes real quick and imagine you are in a swimming pool. You go down to the bottom. If you look up towards the sky and it's daytime and it's a sunny day, you have that sun shining at the surface. Never look directly at it. That's not a good idea, but it is much lighter. So if you have a light belly, you're going to blend in with that light. Let me highlight it. That light that's right up there. If my classroom lights, if that's the sun. Now, as you go deeper into the ocean, it gets darker. There's less light. So if you're looking down towards the bottom, which is usually darker, a dark back is going to blend in. So they are trying to play hide and seek using the sun. It helps them eat food, catch it, and it helps them not become food for something else. The last body thing that I want to talk about with these sharks, before we get into the senses, I want you to just really quick, maybe turn your volume up, maybe kind of scoot closer to your speakers. I want you to see if you can hear something. If I take this shark and I pet it, and I go head to tail, hopefully you don't hear very much. But if I go the other way, from the tail up towards the head, hopefully you can hear that difference. Do any of you know any fun facts about sharks' skin and why there might be no sound this way, but a scratchy sound as I go the other way? Anyone have any idea about shark skin? What's so special and interesting about it?
So a lot of folks think that it sounds like rough sandpaper. And Sloan says that they have denticles. And Kyle agrees that they're denticles. Chase and Matthew think that there are bumps on their back. And a bunch of people are saying scales. And Porter and Joe say placoid scales.
Ooh, there you go.
So I think that captures the answers that you were looking for.
Yep, that is exactly what I was hoping you would say. They have rough, bumpy skin. It feels a lot like sandpaper. The reason it's so bumpy is because of their scales, except they're not scales like we think of on other fish. They're actually modified sharp little teeth that all point backwards. They're called dermal denticles, or if you want to be really scientific and impress your friends, placoid scales. It means pretty much the same thing, tooth-like skin. And that's what all of these sharks are covered with. Now, I do want to get into shark senses, how they find food, especially that sixth sense that was mentioned earlier. But I know you probably have a lot of just general shark questions, maybe about their looks, their body, maybe about the different species I have. So I'd like to pause, and Grace, if we've got a couple questions, could I answer 2 or 3 of them?
We do have a variety of questions. I've been keeping track of them. And first, I think that probably everyone is thinking this, but Isabella asked, since you're showing the dead sharks, do they smell bad?
Luckily for me, or maybe unluckily, I don't smell anything that's bad. They do have a little chemical smell because we keep them in a preservative, a chemical, so they don't break down and they don't rot. But I've worked with them for a long time, and I'm kind of used to the smell. If you were to walk through, there's a door to my classroom just right down there. If you were to suddenly walk through, you'd probably be like, whoa, but it's not like dead fish smell. It smells more like a doctor's office or like someone spilled a bottle of hand sanitizer. And that's because of what we keep them in, so they don't rot and smell bad.
Great. A couple of other questions. So I'm not sure. James is asking, do you know how many shark species there are in the world, or how many sharks there are?
I do not know that number off the top of my head exactly, but I can give you a really good guess. There are over 500 known species of sharks, which is a lot, but we're not sure exactly how many there are or if we've discovered all of the shark species out there. So the number I like to stick with is over 500. There's a lot of different kinds of sharks.
Great. And Brenner's wondering, what's the weirdest shark you've ever seen?
The weirdest shark I've ever seen. Well, two-part answer. Weirdest shark I've ever seen, like in a book or on TV. Maybe when this webinar is done, Google the Goblin Shark. That's a pretty weird looking shark. Lives deep, deep down at the bottom of the ocean. The most common or most weirdest shark that I've seen in person through my research or through volunteering work was actually pretty close to Woods Hole. I was up in Massachusetts. I was a volunteer scientist at a fishing tournament, and someone brought in a thresher shark, which has one of the largest shark tails out there. And that was a really weird looking shark, just because it had such a big tail. So that'd be the weirdest one I've personally seen.
Great. I have a couple of quick questions. How many stomachs do sharks have, Ari asks?
That is an awesome question. They have one stomach, and it's not the biggest organ in their body. That would be their liver. The stomach is kind of like a sack of muscle that they use to gently massage their food and kind of slowly digest it. So a common myth about sharks is that they are constantly out there trying to eat food, and if they stop eating, they're just this mindless eating machine. You eat one big fish, one really good tasty meal of sushi, and that shark might take a day or two to digest it. So the stomach is not super big in a lot of these sharks, and it just goes straight from there to their intestines for more digestion. So one stomach.
Great. So we've had a couple of questions about size. So I was just wondering, someone asked what's the biggest and the smaller sharks. Raven asked, why do they grow so big? So I was hoping you could just touch on the fact, I think a lot of folks think of sharks as being really large and think maybe the ones you're showing us are are just baby sharks. Can you talk a little bit about the range in size that you find amongst different shark species?
Absolutely. So the largest shark that's out there in the ocean would be the whale shark, which there you're getting up into the 40-foot range. Basking shark would also be a really big species. But those are nothing that I have in my classroom, because if you look at the shelves back there, a 40-foot long shark is not going to fit on one of my display cases. The most common shark that we have around here near the Dauphin Island Sea Lab, Mobile Bay, or Dauphin Island, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, if you've ever heard of those places for vacation, would probably be the Atlantic sharpnose, which full grown is only going to be about 3.5 feet long. So most sharks are not really, really large. Most common one around here, only about 3.5 feet. The other sharks I do have, something like a tiger shark, it's going to get much, much bigger. This is a young one. Same thing for the bull shark. And we're talking about double-digit numbers here. 10, 12, 15 feet would probably be large for a big shark. Maybe some of the species are getting into that 19, 20-foot range. Most of them are very small. The smallest is called a pocket shark. It gets that name because it could fit in your pocket. It's a couple inches long. Still a shark, but teeny tiny little shark.
Great. We have so many questions, so I want to let you move on, but I want to ask, I always love to ask this of our presenters, and Aoife and Colum are some of our regulars, and they reminded me of this really great question. So last question before we let you move on. Chris, what is your favorite part of your job?
Ooh, I think the favorite part of my job, I have a couple different answers. One, I get paid to work at the beach. That's a pretty nice job, especially when the beaches are open. Second best part of my job is I get to work with students, because students always ask the best questions. They get the most excited. It's just really fun to work with them. And probably third, because sharks are my favorite thing out there in the ocean, I get to work with sharks. Sometimes they're live ones that we're teaching about, or I'm working with a researcher, and sometimes it's through events like this, where I get to talk about the dead ones, the preserved ones, and I get to answer all of your questions. So that would be, I guess probably if my boss is watching, I should say, first thing, I love working with the kids. Second thing, it's the shark. Third thing is I get paid to work at the beach. But it's pretty nice to work at the beach. So that's awesome about my job.
We'll keep it a secret from your boss, but thanks for sharing that, Chris. And I know you have so many cool things to share with us about shark senses, so please go ahead and I'll keep track of all the questions that come in.
Awesome, thank you very much. So the first sense that I want to talk about with these sharks is their sense of smell. Some of you might like to watch shark TV shows, documentaries. Maybe you're big fans of Shark Week. And it seems like in at least one episode of every Shark Week that I watch, somewhere in there they mention shark sense of smell. And you hear a fact like, well, sharks can smell one drop of blood that's a mile away. Or you can smell one drop of blood in a giant Olympic-sized swimming pool. And these could be true, it just depends. It depends on how much blood there is and where the water is moving. Because let's say you're the bull shark, you're over here, and there's a fish, and it's bleeding here in the middle where I'm standing, and the ocean current, it's moving the water that way. The smell is getting carried from here, and it's going there. And it doesn't go next to that bull shark. So that bull shark might be 10, 20 feet away. Yeah, maybe, let's say 100 yards, one football field. It might not smell it because all of the smell is going that way. But let's say, yeah, there's one drop of blood and it's at the other end of a backyard size swimming pool. Would probably be a little bit more reasonable. that water is pushing the smell towards the shark, it will absolutely be able to smell that single drop of blood. The awesome thing about shark senses, their smell, they can actually tell the difference between all of these other smells. Sometimes they're smelling for food, so fish blood in the water would be very attractive, or smelly bait if you're going fishing. They might like that. Other times they might be using that smell and they're like, oh, I know that smell. That's a larger shark. I don't want to be here. I want to avoid the bigger predator. Sometimes they use it to find other sharks of the same species. I need a buddy. I'm gonna go hang out. A lot of times you see hammerhead sharks swim in large schools. Well, sometimes you gotta find each other, and sense of smell could help with that. So they have a really, really highly defined or highly refined sense of smell. It's really good. Question for all of you. If you're bleeding, so you got a cut on your arm, or maybe you stepped on a rock at the beach, your foot's bleeding, you get into the water, are sharks going to be able to smell that blood and be attracted to you? And they're like, ooh, human, I'm going to go eat them. Is that true? Because I hear it a lot on TV and on the internet. What do you think?
We have a pretty savvy crew, Chris, I have to tell you. And so we are getting a lot of no's. Raven, Taylor, Duncan, Quinn, James, Michael, Annalise, Sloan, no's across the board. It's not really true, everyone says.
Awesome. You have no idea how happy that just made me. You guys are great. I love this audience. So no, you are not going to immediately get bit by a shark, and they are not going to track you down because you're bleeding in the water. You probably shouldn't be in the water because you do have an open cut, and there's a lot of stuff out there in the ocean. I mean, there's poop, there's dead stuff. You don't want that getting in your cut. There's lots of little plankton. You probably don't want, you don't want dirt in the cut. You probably don't want to be in the water. But the sharks, they'll smell your blood, and they can tell you're not a fish because your blood is very different from fish blood, and it smells different to them. So no, common myth, sharks are not going to be attracted to you just because you're in the water and you are bleeding. I want to move on to our next sense, but I know I went through that one kind of quickly. So I'm going to pause for a second. Does anyone have any questions about sharks and their sense of smell?
So, does anyone have any questions about sharks? I'm going to give you a quick question while people are thinking about that to see if there are any about their sense of smell. But so we had someone ask, can the same species of sharks still eat each other? Because you had mentioned that some species, if they smell another, might swim away. Is there any species where they eat them, other members of their species?
Absolutely. So something like a bull shark, they're going to take the opportunity if food is available. So if you're a 5-foot bull shark and you're swimming next to another 5-foot bull shark, probably don't have to worry about getting eaten. But if you're a baby bull shark and there is another bigger, larger adult that's nearby, you are absolutely on the menu. That's one case of sharks of the same species eating each other, but there's also another one that gets a little bit weird. If you've ever heard of a sand tiger shark, they do something called interuterine cannibalism, where basically mom has her babies, she's carrying them inside of her. She hasn't given birth to them yet, and the babies will actually eat each other inside their own mom, and mom will only give birth to 2 babies, the 2 surviving sharks, which is kind of weird and a little bit scary to think about. So yes, sharks of the same species will absolutely eat each other. Not all of them, but usually if you're a shark, anything swimming that's fishy-like and is smaller than you, it's probably fair game. It's on the menu.
Great. And we had a couple of people, so Ian and Aoife and Cullum have all asked, how far away can they smell?
It's all going to depend on the ocean current. If it's a really strong smell, like if I'm going out fishing and I dump a bucket of dead fish into the water, I'm chumming because I want to attract the sharks, and that's a really strong smell, a really strong ocean current, they might be able to pick it up from over a mile away. But again, that's only if the water is carrying it to them. So it really does depend on what the water's doing.
Great. And we also had another question. Syaxi is wondering, can they smell diving equipment?
I would say yes, probably. I don't know if it's something that they're going to kind of like, oh, a nice, that's a fresh wetsuit or something like that, or a metallic scuba tank. I'm sure as long as it's giving off an odor, they can pick up on that, but it might not be something that registers as interesting to them. Research has shown they are mainly attracted to amino acids and bile salts, which is produced by the body. So think fish waste and think fish injured, bleeding, so things that are going to indicate food. If you dump a whole bunch of perfume in the ocean, which you probably shouldn't do, but as long as it's giving off a smell, the shark can pick up on it. It just might not be interested.
Great. I'm going to give you one more question. You don't have to answer it yet because I think you're going to get there, but a variety of people have been asking it, so I just want them to know that you're going to cover it. So Eric and Anya are asking, do some sharks lay eggs or do they have live birth? So you can either answer that now, or if you're going to get to that later in your talk, you can tell everyone to hold on.
No, I can absolutely answer that now. So they do both, depending on which species. Sometimes you find little shark eggs on the beach, called mermaid's purses by a lot of people. So some sharks, and don't go anywhere.
I was going to say, I know that you have a mermaid's purse, so I was hoping that you were going to show it to us. Is that what you went to get?
So some, if you find this on the beach, let's say you're here on Dauphin Island where I'm at. If you go to the beach, you find this, which I do have to say our beaches are still closed right now, sadly, but hopefully they'll open up again soon. But if you find this, it's not a shark. This came from a skate. But let's say you are in the Pacific Ocean or the Indian Ocean. Shark might have laid this. Bamboo sharks will do it. Some other species of sharks, like an epaulet shark, a lot of ones you see in aquariums or fish tanks, they are egg layers. But then there's other sharks, the bull shark, my hammerheads, shark nose, things like that, and they will give birth to live young. So as soon as those babies come out of their mom, they are able to swim, and they probably are trying to get away from her, hide in shallow water or a reef or something, because if she's hungry, it's tasty snack. So smaller shark, fair game. So some sharks, depending on the species, some are live birth, some lay eggs, some have eggs that hatch inside them, and then they give live birth. So they've got options.
Great. Well, I think we're going to let you move on, and I'll save the rest of the questions for a little bit later.
All right. Thank you. The next thing I want to talk about is sharks' vision. We're going to talk about their eyeballs there really quick. Sharks have very sensitive eyes. They're actually kind of similar to cat's eyes, where they can capture a whole lot of light. They're actually about 10 times as sensitive to light as our eyes are. So as the sun is rising or the sun is setting, it's kind of darkish, murky water, that shark can see a lot better than you can, which is one of the things that makes them such an awesome hunter. And they do want to try their best to protect those eyes. Now, I've got a question for you. You could be typing in right now questions you have about sharks' eyesight, but I also want to see if anyone has an answer to this next question. A lot of research seems to tell us that sharks are farsighted. They can see things in the distance, but they're not super good at seeing things right in front of their face. Do any of you have an idea why a shark might not have the best vision up close, right in front of them? Any thoughts?
Okay, so the question is, why is it hard for them to see what's right in front of them? So Ari asks if sharks have stereoscopic vision. And let's see, Kayla says their eyes are spread out wide. Sloan says because their eyes are on the side of their head. A variety of people actually, Diana, Stephen, James are all saying that their eyes are on the side and that really affects where they can see.
It has a lot to do with the position of their eyes. If you look, here's my hammerhead, extreme example. Those eyes are way out there on the sides. And they're not really positioned so they can tilt super high up or super high down. And if you think about sharks, like let's say all of a sudden I want to look up. I can go like this and I can see a little bit, but I can't see what's directly above my head. To do that, I'm going to do this. Can a shark do that? Whole body's got to go up if they want to see what's on top of them. So it's that eye positioning. They're not in a good spot to see stuff that's right in front of them. So sight is actually not the sense that sharks are using to tell them there's food right in front of me, open mouth, closed mouth now. We're going to get into that one in a little bit. This is something where maybe they've smelled something in the distance. They've followed that smell, followed that current that's carrying the smell, and then they see food. They swim up closer and closer and closer, and then the other senses have to kick in. Before we get into those other senses, did anyone have any questions about shark eyesight?
We do have a variety of questions about shark eyesight. Thanks for pausing and asking, Chris. Anya's wondering how they protect their eyes from the water. Is there anything that keeps the water out of their eyes?
Well, not really. Their eyes are built to be in salt water. They're used to it. So it doesn't sting their eyes like it would sting our eyes. But they do want to be very protective of those eyes. And I'm glad you mentioned this. There's two ways that a shark who's going in to eat something might protect itself. Because, I don't know, let's say you're going to eat another big fish. They've got sharp fins, they've got scales. Sometimes they have sharp teeth. If it's another shark, that shark might have sharp teeth. And you don't want your eyesight to get damaged. Some sharks, let me see if I could find one. Some sharks will have a little, focus, a little membrane that they can slide over their eye, called a nictitating membrane. And they can actually kind of like pull a curtain over their eye, a little extra layer of shielding. If you've ever watched Shark Week, you've probably seen videos of great whites. They will actually roll their eyes back to protect them. So eyes are something they are very interested in protecting. Salt water, they live in it every day, so it's not really going to bug them like it would bug us, but absolutely, they are going to take steps to protect those eyes. That eyesight is important. Great question.
So I'm glad you mentioned that sharks roll their eyes back in the back of their head. Jennifer asked, do all species do that, or is that something that just great whites do?
It's only some of them. So sharks do want to protect their eye. They don't really have eyelids like we do. So the two main strategies for protecting them. One is that membrane that they can kind of pull up to close it over, kind of like a curtain over their eye. And then if you don't have one of those, you'll roll your eyes back. So those are the two main options. So not every shark will roll its eyes back.
Great. Now, Nolan, Duncan, Michael, and Brenner all asked, how far can they see? How far away can sharks see?
Well, I don't want to frustrate you, but I think a lot of these questions about distance, I'm going to have to answer the same way. It depends. Let's say you're in a part of the ocean, the water is really, really clear. If you're a scuba diver, we would say visibility is really good. You could see a far distance. Now, we're not talking about like a mile away, but 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, maybe even more than that. Let's say you're close to the beach. There's a lot of waves crashing, a lot of sand or dirt or mud is getting stirred up. Well, you would have poor visibility. It's very hard to see. And then that shark might have, its vision might see out 5 feet, 10 feet. And that's where they're going to rely on their other senses. Smell, hearing, which we haven't talked about yet, a couple others. So I'm sorry if that's frustrating, but it depends. Clear water, they're going to see a good bit. Not miles and miles, but a football field or two, something like that. Murky water might be a couple inches in front of their nose, might be all they get.
No, I'm glad that you say that, because I know that our vision, if on a foggy day, is very different than on a very clear day. So it's nice to hear that it's the same for sharks. One last question. Roger asked a very interesting question. Do sharks see in color?
Ooh, that is a very good question. And I gotta say, you stumped me a little bit on that one. I don't have a definite answer. My understanding, and I could be wrong, I'm gonna double check this later. But my understanding is yes, they can see in color. No, it is not the same as us. They have a different number of rods and cones in their eyes. Rods and cones are the things that help us see these different colors. Because they don't have the same amount as us, they do not see colors the exact same way that we do. But to a certain degree, yes, they can tell the difference between colors. It's just their blue might not be the same blue for you. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. The other thing that I would say, Chris, that I encourage all of our listeners to do is, if you get if you have a question that maybe we're unsure of, I always encourage them to look it up. There's so much great information out there. And so I encourage them to become the mini experts as well. So I think that's a great question to encourage Roger to do a little research on. I think I just looking a little bit myself, see there's some really interesting studies out there that he might be able to take a look at.
Excellent. Well, Roger, thank you for the question. I always love it when I get stumped, because that means I also have to go and do more research. So I appreciate that. I've got something to do this afternoon.
Great. Well, I'm going to hold on to the questions and let you continue on. So thank you, Chris.
All right. The next sense that I want to talk about, and I know we're getting close to the end, so I'm going to go kind of quick, but hearing. On these sharks, anyone notice any ears? Hopefully not, because sharks do not have ears outside their body like we do. Their ears are internal, and they are picking up vibrations in the water. Sound moves through the water a little bit differently than it does on land, because water is denser than air. So lower frequency, deeper noises are going to travel a lot farther. So sharks hear in a lot lower frequencies than we do. This is most common for pretty much all ocean creatures. Their hearing is in the, let's say, if you want to get specific, it's about the 1,000 hertz range is the frequency that they're listening in, because this sound travels farther. Now, I'm thinking maybe someone has a question about how far a shark can hear, how far things are away. It depends, but they can hear a lot farther than they can see. This might be something where they're picking up the sound of a group of fish splashing, large group, a lot of feeding going on. Let's say there's a school of anchovies. You've got medium-sized fish eating the anchovies. Birds are splashing in the water. A lot of noise going on. Shark might hear that from half a mile away. If it's just you out there and you're kind of splashing your hand in the water, shark a mile away is probably not going to hear that. But these splashing noises are things that they're really keyed in on. They hear splashing, they're going to probably try and swim toward that to investigate it, because their prey, let's say it's a wounded fish, is probably going to be splashing a whole lot. They're also really attracted to reefs. There's a lot of food there. Reefs are noisy places. You have wave noises. You have crabs are clacking their claws. There's fish that can produce their own noises, kind of make a drumming noise. We have a lot of those fish down in this area. And sharks are able to hear all of those different noises. It sounds like food, splashing, wounded fish, maybe they smell the fish blood. These are all things that are adding up in the shark's brain. Food is in that direction. They're going to move that way. So they can hear. Depends on how noisy it is, how loud we could say underwater. And it depends on, again, kind of how the water is that day. So that one I went through real quick because I do want to get to that sixth sense that we mentioned earlier. But do I have time for maybe one question about hearing?
You know what? I'm going to let you continue on to that sixth sense because a lot of folks have been asking questions and are eager to hear that. So, so go for it.
Okay, we'll go for it. One of their really special senses that they have, sharks, and we do not. You know, we can see, we can smell, we can hear, but it was mentioned at the very beginning. One of you was already on this, on my big final closer sense. They have the ability to detect electrical signals in the water using something called the ampullae of Lorenzini, which is a big fancy way of saying that on their nose, on the bottom and on the top, they have gel-filled sacs or pores that can pick up electricity. Now these sharks are kind of small. It's going to be hard for you to see them on the camera, but Grace, if you could you pull up a picture of those ampullae for me? Just let me know when it's up there.
I'm pulling it up right now, and folks should see it in just a second. So let me just make sure. I am going to share. And there we go. Can people see it? Oh, there we go.
So when that comes up and you start to look at all of those little dots underneath, that's a tiger shark, underneath its nose. Each one of those is a pore, kind of like that we have on our faces. If you're young enough to have not experienced pimples yet, like, good for you, they're not fun, but we have pores on our face, sometimes get irritated. Theirs are filled with this conductive jelly almost, and they can pick up electrical signals in the water. Now, my question for you is, where is a shark going to be picking up these electrical signals? Or maybe a better way to ask it is, what's making those electrical signals? And I'll tell you right now, as you're thinking about it, it's not because all of the fish are out there charging their iPhones so they could hop on the webinar to learn about sharks. They're not charging laptops or things like that. Where are these electrical signals coming from?
Okay, I'm sure those fish wish they had iPhones so that they could learn more about sharks from you, but you're right. A lot of our folks are weighing in. Brenner thinks that it's from boats. Stephen thinks that maybe from water. Aoife and Cullum think boats. Kayla thinks maybe the hearts from other organisms. Anya and Kyle are thinking maybe movement sends signals. Jonathan thinks maybe the weather. Eric thinks maybe animals' nervous systems are sending electrical signals. Isabella thinks maybe fish have electrical signals. Thinks that's
All right.
covers it.
Those all sound like pretty good answers. Let me talk about a few real quick. Yes, boats are giving off electrical signals, and there's a lot of cases. You could probably go on YouTube and find 3 or 4 videos very easily of people who are fishing. A shark comes up and it just kind of gently bites the boat's motor. Usually not when it's spinning, but they sense the electrical signal. They go up and they're like, oh, what's that thing? There's a lot of other videos and shark documentaries where the shark will swim right past a diver, but then it'll take notice of the camera that they're trying to film it with. It might bite the lens of the camera because it's generating an electrical signal. But these are all things that humans bring into the water, and sharks were picking up electrical signals long before humans had underwater cameras or motorized boats, things like that. So mainly what this sense is evolved to pick up on is signals coming from the animals themselves. Now, we're going to do something real quick. You might need to maybe back up from the screen a little bit, make sure you're not like within elbow range of your brother or your sister, whoever's watching with you. But everyone, take your left hand, touch the top of your head. Now take your right hand, touch your belly button. Now touch your left shoulder. Now touch your right shoulder. Now touch your nose. Now touch your ears. Now touch your ear. Put your hands here, put your hands here, put your hands here, down here, up here, over there, right there. How did your brain tell your muscles to do all of that wonderful exercise? Did it send text messages, emails, signal flags? It was all electrical signals. Your brain sent them to your muscles, and those muscles moved depending on how that signal stimulated them. One of the main muscles that we're really interested in having run all of the time is your heart. If you have a beating heart, your body is giving off little electrical signals. And we're not talking about anything strong enough to charge your phone. We're talking teeny, 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 tiny little amounts of electricity. But sharks are sensitive enough where they can pick up on that. So let's say you're a stingray, which a lot of sharks love to eat. You're a stingray, you're buried in the sand down on the ocean floor. You think you're totally hidden, but a shark swimming over you is going to feel that heartbeat with these ampullae of Lorenzini, and they will be able to pick up on that. So this is kind of like sharks' bonus sense, or a superpower is how I like to think of it, because we can't do anything like that. Now that I've covered that, I've hit the major senses, we've answered some questions about sharks, I would love to wrap it up with final questions. If anyone's got any of those or any we haven't answered yet so far.
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions. One I would love for you to answer is folks were asking about the lateral line. Could you just briefly explain what the lateral line is?
Absolutely. So, right there, the light kind of catches it. If you look that line right there, that is an open or a line filled with little openings. And inside the shark, all of those openings are connected together. That system is called the lateral line. It's designed to detect pressure changes in the water. So let's say you're in the water, you're in a pool, and you don't hit your friend, but you take your hands and you just make a shoving motion, and they're way over there, let's say like 2 feet away. They're going to feel water move against them. You push water and it traveled. Well, if something swims, a fish twitches, something like that, that water movement will go into those little openings and it will bump into things called neuromasts or neuromast cells. They've got little hairs, and when those hairs move, that shark is detecting pressure changes. So they can literally feel what's around them without having to actually touch it. So for us, if I want to know that, you know, something's swimming right next to me, if my eyes are closed, this shark could probably go, and unless it bumps me, I'm not going to know it's there. But if you're a shark, anything that's moving water, swimming around you, well, you're going to be able to feel that. I might be looking this way, I feel the fish that's 2 feet over there behind me. And if it's swimming weakly, pressure is kind of erratic because they're twitching, injured fish, tasty and delicious, probably going to go turn around and check that out. So that is their lateral line, and it is not unique to sharks. A lot of different kinds of fish have that. It's actually what helps a lot of fish swim in schools.
Great. And I think you may have already addressed this, but I think it's worth hearing a second time. Brenner's asking about shark attacks and how many shark attacks there are per year. If
the number is very, very small. And don't get me wrong, when they do happen, it is sad. I don't want anyone to get bit by sharks. I don't want sharks to go and bite people, because usually we react by going out and killing more sharks, which is, it's not good for them. It's not good for us. Shark attacks, for the most part, on people are accidents, where some of these signals that we've talked about get mixed up. Let's say you're in the water, you're bleeding. The shark can smell your blood. It's like, not a fish, not tasty and delicious. I want nothing to do with that. But let's say it smells you, and you smell like sunscreen. It knows not tasty, but you've got a sparkly bracelet on. Looks a lot like fish scales in the sun. Or maybe you're swimming, and humans, we're not the most graceful swimmers. You look like a wounded fish that's trying to struggle through the water. These are signals that tell the shark food. But you don't look like food, you don't smell like food, but you're acting like food, you're sparkly like food. What's a shark to do? They have to use their final sense, which is kind of touch, kind of taste. Think about stories you might have heard when you were babies, or maybe you've got a younger brother or sister or cousin. A lot of times we see babies exploring the world around them by picking stuff up, and they put it in their mouth. Sharks are doing the same thing. So in most cases, these shark attacks, which are very rare, it's the shark trying to figure out what you are. They take one bite, and then they spit you out. The only problem is that one bite from something like a bull shark, which this is a really big mouth filled with rows and rows and rows of teeth. That one bite could be enough to send you to the hospital. But that shark did not see you as food. It did not think you were appetizing, and it's not going to hang out and chow down on you. So yes, shark attacks do happen. Is it something that I'm concerned about when I go to the ocean and I go swimming? No, I'm not thinking about it. I am trying to be careful. I don't swim with fish bait in my pocket. I don't want to smell like food. I try not to swim at dawn or dusk when there's lots of fish in the water. That's good feeding time. And if I'm standing on a boat or on top of a dock or a pier and I see a shark in the water, I'm not going to jump on the back of the shark, because, you know, if I was walking down the street and you jumped on top of me all of a sudden, like you yelled cowabunga and just landed on my shoulders, I'm probably going to bite you too, and then I'm going to scream and run away because you just scared me. So I'm not super concerned, but they do happen, and it is unfortunate, but the number of shark attacks that happen each year, it is such a small number. They are rare events.
Thank you. And I know there are so many questions that people still have. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I just want to thank you, Chris, because there were so many people asking questions, a lot of interest in sharks. I know that when I talk to various students in classrooms, they are always asking me about sharks. So I told my friend Chris, I said, you get the really exciting job. They love to hear about sharks. So we appreciate you taking the time. We appreciate you sharing your sharks. A lot of folks did ask how many sharks you have. I don't know if you know off the top of your head how many specimens you have in your, you can just say a lot.
A lot, yes.
Oh.
We have at least 4 classroom sets, and
Nice.
then others. So yes, we do a lot of teaching with them. It's not 100, it's less than that, but it's more than an average person would.
Great. Well, we appreciate you sharing your expertise on sharks and spending this hour with us. I want to encourage our listeners, if you want to come on Friday to our webinar at 11, we're going to have someone talking about their job as an oil spill response team scientist. And this is the 10th anniversary of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. That the anniversary was last month. And so these folks were part of that response team, and they'll talk about the response and the restoration. So please tune in to our webinar on Friday. That should be really interesting. But again, thank you, Chris, so much for spending this hour with us. And if anyone came in towards the end, you can always see the recorded webinar, and it will have English and Spanish subtitles once it goes online. All right, thanks so much, and we'll see you all on Friday or maybe next week. We have some exciting webinars then. Until then, at least here on Cape Cod, it is a gorgeous day. And so I'm going to go sit on my front steps and just soak in some sun. See you all.
Bye, thank you.